All right, today we are diving deep into the invasion of Poland in 1939. This was the 35-day campaign that, for all intents and purposes, kicked off the Second World War. In just over a month, this conflict literally redrew the map of Europe and plunged the entire world into its deadliest war in history.
So to really get why this happened, you have to start with the man behind it all. This quote from Hitler said to his generals months before a single shot was fired is just chillingly honest. This wasn't some border dispute over a city like Danzig. No, the real goal was conquest, plain and simple, creating what he called Lebensraum, or German living space.
Now, to understand how this whole invasion played out, you really have to look at the crucial week before it happened. Because you could argue this war was won and lost, not on the battlefield, but in the back rooms where diplomacy was happening, or, well, failing.
And this timeline really shows the impossible geopolitical trap Poland was in. First, you get the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. I mean, what a bombshell. Publicly, it's just two enemies agreeing not to fight. But secretly, Hitler and Stalin had already agreed to slice Poland in half and each take a piece. This was huge for Germany and meant no two-front war. The Anglo-Polish Pact was the response, but honestly, it was too little too late. The last piece of the puzzle was the Gleiwitz incident, a totally fake attack where Germans dressed as Polish soldiers shot up a German radio station, giving Hitler the paper-thin excuse he needed to invade.
Okay, so let's shift from the politics to the battlefield. When the invasion actually started, Poland was facing an absolute strategic nightmare. The difference in military power between the two sides, it was just staggering.
And this chart just says it all, doesn't it? Germany rolls in with almost 3,000 tanks, all organized into these powerful, fast-moving panzer divisions built for one thing, punching holes in enemy lines. Poland, on the other hand, had less than 900 armored vehicles, and a lot of those were tiny tankettes, basically armored cars with machine guns. They were spread out to support the infantry, which meant they stood no chance against a concentrated German armored assault.
The picture in the sky was even worse. The German Luftwaffe had over 2,300 planes ready to go, including the terrifying Stuka dive bombers. And their pilots? A lot of them were veterans of the Spanish Civil War. Poland could only muster about 400 combat planes, and many of those were pretty outdated compared to the German machines.
So on top of being outnumbered, Poland's own geography put it in a headlock. See, after Germany took over Czechoslovakia, Poland was flanked on three sides. This created this insanely long 5,600-kilometer border they had to defend. And all their most important industrial zones were right there in the west, totally exposed. This forced the Polish army to spread itself way too thin, right where the Germans were about to hit the hardest.
So here's the crucial takeaway from all that. Poland wasn't just outgunned by one powerful enemy. No, its fate was sealed because it was about to get hit by a coordinated, double invasion that made any kind of real defense impossible from the get-go.
So on September 1st, Germany launches Case White. And it was a classic pincer movement, just on a massive scale. Think of it like a giant pair of claws. One claw attacked from Germany proper in the west, another from East Prussia in the north, and the third from Slovakia in the south. The whole point was to use lightning speed to snap those claws shut and crush the main Polish army right near the border, before they had any chance to fall back.
And you know, for 16 days, the Polish forces fought back incredibly hard. I mean, against these insane odds, they're in a fighting retreat, trying to set up a new defensive line down in the southeast, near Romania. The whole plan was to hold on there just long enough for their allies, Britain and France, to come help. But then, the other shoe dropped. On September 17th, the Soviet Union invades from the east. This was it. This was the secret part of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact being put into action. In that single moment, any hope of setting up that defensive line was gone. The Polish forces that were left were now trapped between the Germans on one side and the Soviets on the other. The fight was over.
You know, the story of this campaign is filled with some powerful myths, and a lot of them came directly from wartime propaganda. So let's take a minute and just set the record straight on a couple of the most famous ones. Okay, this is probably the most famous image from the entire invasion, right? You've seen it in your head, brave but sort of foolish Polish cavalry charging unstoppable German tanks with lances. It's a really potent image, but is it what really happened?
Well, the truth is a lot more complicated, and a lot more impressive, actually. The whole myth comes from one battle, the charge at Krojanty. A Polish cavalry unit did make a successful surprise saber charge, but against a German infantry battalion, and they totally scattered them. It was only when they were pulling back that they got caught in the open by German armored cars with machine guns. Later, reporters saw the aftermath, dead horses and dead soldiers next to armored vehicles, and the propaganda myth of lances versus tanks was born. In reality, Polish cavalry were basically highly mobile infantry. They rode to the fight, but then they got off their horses and fought on foot.
All right, here's another huge myth, also cooked up by German propaganda. The story goes that the Luftwaffe just completely wiped out the Polish Air Force on its runways in the first hours of the war, never even got a chance to take off.
Yeah, that is also completely false. The Polish High Command was actually incredibly smart about this. In the days right before the invasion, they moved their entire combat fleet away from the big, obvious airfields to small, secret, camouflaged landing strips. So the planes the Germans were bombing on day one, they were mostly old training planes or decoys. The real Polish Air Force, even though it was tiny by comparison, fought on for 2 weeks and gave the Luftwaffe a pretty bloody nose, taking down nearly 300 German planes.
So on October 6th, the last major Polish army group surrendered. After 35 days, the campaign was over. But for Poland and its people, this was just the start of a 6-year-long nightmare. I mean, just look at this number. The human cost was simply devastating. You combine all the killed, wounded, and prisoners taken by both the Germans and the Soviets, and you get nearly 875,000 Polish soldiers, an entire army effectively erased in just over a month. And with the military gone, the country of Poland itself just vanished from the map. Just like they agreed in their secret pact, Germany and the Soviet Union carved it up. Germany just outright annexed the western parts, the Soviets absorbed the eastern parts, and the hunk of land in the middle became a brutal colonial territory run by the Nazis called the General Government. But this is the point you have to remember. Despite all of this, their army destroyed, their country gone, the Polish state never formally surrendered. A government in exile was set up immediately, and hundreds of thousands of Polish soldiers and airmen who managed to escape would keep fighting alongside the Allies on every single front of the war, all the way to the end. Look, the invasion of Poland was a catastrophic military defeat, no question. But it leaves you with this really fascinating thought. What truly makes a nation? Is it just borders on a map? Or is it the unbreakable will of its people to fight on and endure? The September campaign, in its own tragic way, showed the world that even when a state can be conquered, a nation can continue to fight for its very soul.